Thanks for listening to the Good Enough Wellness Podcast. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Emily.
And we're passionate about holistic wellness that real people with real lives can achieve.
We see you out there striving for perfection, but we want you to know that good enough can be good enough.
Before we get started, everything we talk about in this show is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Always talk to your healthcare provider before making any changes to your diet, lifestyle, medication, or supplements. You're listening to episode 24, our favorite resources, Cookbook Edition. In this episode, we are going to share some of our favorite cookbooks, including some of our favorite recipes from them.
But before we jump in, have you checked out our free Patreon yet? You can find the link in the description, and it's the home of our show notes, resources, and community, and even some downloads. We're working to build this out to have lots of bonus content, so get in while it's still free. So Kayla, what have you been nerding out about?
I have been nerding out about conception. So I recently purchased the Conscious Conception course from Innate Fertility.
Oh, I'm excited about this.
And I am not all the way through it yet, but I am working my way through it, and it is excellent. If you have any interest or desire to optimize your fertility, I highly recommend it, especially if you're struggling with fertility, which has been a struggle of mine. So good. It has been so good. Like all the stuff from mindset to actual information to teaching you about cycles to teaching you like optimal ingredients for baby making. Like everything is so well thought out and so beautifully put together. Lots of resources, lots of handouts, lots of like stuff you can do, like not just information, but like here's like homework to do. And I'm sure I'm not even to the good part yet, because I'm like, I keep watching it because I'm like, I want to get to the build your own prenatal part.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she put it at the end for a reason. So I keep going back to it and doing more of it because it is so good. Cannot more highly recommend this course.
That sounds awesome.
So Emily, what about you?
I'm going to take you on a journey. You're not ready.
I'll be honest, when I saw all your bullet points in here, I thought you accidentally were doing like stuff for school in the document. And I was like, what is happening? And then I realized like, no, she's actually nerding out about this.
You guys, I can't wait for summer when I can nerd out about something that isn't just history. But in the meantime, buckle up. Okay, so we're in the 1890s and the Spanish control the Philippines. So we're talking Spain. Mm-hmm. They control the Philippines and also Cuba and actually many other places. They were a superpower at the time. And a man named Jose Rizal, who was actually Filipino, he wasn't Spanish like his name implies, but he was pretty well educated, and he started to have ideas about independence. And he wrote a book called Touch Me Not. And this book, it was an allegory about independence, obviously, but the interesting thing is that the Filipinos really didn't read it, but the Cubans did. And the Cubans, so they read this book and they started having ideas about independence. And they even, they were like, they almost made it sound like gangs, like there were some rebels, and they took on the term independence o muerte, which independence or death. So there was unrest, but I mean, pretty mild comparatively speaking to a lot of other things going on in the world. However, here's where it gets a little spicy and you're going to get a little angry about it. So the two main newspapers, these were like very influential at the time in the U.S., was the New York Journal, which was owned by William Hearst, and the New York World owned by Joseph Pulitzer, as in, yes, the Pulitzer Prize.
Say, is that Pulitzer Prize guy?
Correct, yes. They sold newspapers. That was their bread and butter, their main thing. And they began pushing what they dubbed the Cuban crisis. Don't get this confused with the Cuban Missile Crisis. That comes later. Because wartime equals more newspaper sales. So the more outrageous the headlines, the more clicks they got, interestingly enough. So then 1898 rolls around, and the USS Maine is blown up in a Cuban harbor. So that's a U.S. ship blown to smithereens. And most experts today agree with Spain that it was just some crossed wires and a short out, and it exploded. It happened then. That's a normal thing. But the U.S. decided that no, it must be that the Spanish blew up this U.S. ship.
Conspiracy theories.
I know, yeah. And the newspapers, so Hearst and Pulitzer, started pushing these headlines to call for war with Spain because, well, you sell a lot of newspapers during wartime. And on April 19th, 1898, Congress voted to go to war with Spain all over the world. So not just in Cuba, but wherever Spain was, which included the Philippines. And Spain did eventually surrender. But instead of gaining independence, the U.S. decided to maintain control of the Philippines, despite fighting for their own independence 125 years before that. You know, big, like, independence people. No, we're going to keep control of the
Only
Philippines.
ours.
I don't want to talk about it, but here we are talking about it. And 200,000 Filipinos died as a result of this. And I'm sure more people all over the world, because they were fighting all over the world. And that's the story of how two major U.S. newspaper companies started the Spanish-American War.
That's kind of a bummer.
It is a bummer. It's kind of wild because history just repeats itself.
Over and over.
Over and over. There's a lot of lessons to be learned. So,
yeah,
that's what I've been nerding out about. We love cookbooks. I'm a cookbook hoarder, and I cook out of them like 5% of the time. But here are like just kind of this list of cookbooks that you and I actually use. Like they're not just pretty on our shelves. They're not just cool, but like we actually like cook out of them over and over again. So here we've got it divided into several categories. We're definitely going to link them all in the show notes. They're worth checking out. A lot of them might be in your local library, so check it out there first. Put it on your Christmas list, birthday list. These are ones that are like go to again and again, tried and true for us. So we're going to start out strong in the meat category. By the way, we didn't really go with like logical categories. You'll see. It gets weird. But why don't you go ahead and start out with the meat category, because this is one of your favorites, I know.
Yeah, so this first cookbook is called The Cook's Book by Brie McCoy. I heard about this on a podcast and I was like, that sounds amazing. It's intended for mostly beginners, which I am not a beginner cook. Really, I'm not. Like, I've been cooking with my mom since I was in the single digits. So I'm not any stranger to cooking, but she teaches a lot of like basics of cooking and like how to build a plate, which sometimes I struggle with because I've been cooking with my mom since the single digits. And so a lot of my like cooking knowledge is just kind of there. It doesn't have any rhyme or reason. It's just kind of like, I know this because I know it. And so I got it and I was like, I'm just going to at least give it a try because it sounds really good. The recipes sounded really good. So I got it and I was like, I'm actually surprised at how much I'm learning from this. Like how to layer flavors, and it kind of built on another of my favorite cookbooks, which I'm going to talk about later, but how to like build a well-balanced plate basically, and not nutritionally, like flavor-wise. So this is The Cook's Book by Brie McCoy. Some of my favorite recipes from that book are the first hello pasta. This is the only, like I just used the spaghetti sauce from it now. It's a spaghetti sauce basically, and it's probably the best spaghetti sauce I've ever had. And at this point I can like tweak it and like kind of make it my own, but favorite recipe from that book. That's like my go-to. I also really like, there's a halibut curry recipe in there, and I don't think I've ever used halibut in it, but it's a good fish curry. It's a highly requested dish at my home because we're not big fish people, but that's like an excellent fish recipe. And then another one that I like from it is she has like a quick ramen recipe in there, and I have really enjoyed that as someone who doesn't really do a lot of ramen kind of stuff. It's been a good like beginner ramen thing for me.
Yeah, I love that cookbook too. So you got a copy, and then you got your sister a copy.
Yes.
And then our friend Ashlyn saw it and she's like, I'm gonna get a copy. And then everybody's talking about it in the group chat. I was like, what's a cook's book? I want one. So then same sister got that one for me for Christmas. So we literally all cook out of it. And it's super fun because then we can be like, hey, I made this. And nobody has to like wonder where it came from. We know it, like, oh, must be from the cook's book.
Yeah.
Up next is the Prairie Homestead Cookbook by the Prairie Homestead. What's her name?
Jill Winger.
Jill Winger. She's the queen of all things homestead prairie. That's really well named. But I don't cook out of this one a ton, but I do have it and I've definitely used it. But I know you love the cheddar herb meatloaf in it and the herb crescent rolls. Oh, I've made those actually.
I was going to say, you did cook out of this because you made the herb crescent rolls for Thanksgiving.
You know, Caleb asked me if I wanted decaf or regular, and I said decaf, and I'm questioning my decision. On one hand, my heart is not racing. By the other hand, the brain
is not either. But yes,
she's awesome. She cooks just real food. Like
Yeah.
This is stuff that they would make on their. I don't want to use the word homestead on their farm for their family. They have kids, they
Yes.
homeschool. So she gets it. She gets all
Yeah.
the busyness and everything and just really just good home cooked food.
yes. I also, I've cooked several recipes out of this, but like Emily said, cheddar herb meatloaf is one of my favorites, herb crescent rolls, and she has a maple glazed pork chop.
Oh, that
That,
good.
I've never been good at making pork chops. Pork chops always come out dry. We love these maple glazed pork chops.
That's awesome.
They are amazing.
Oh, it's worth noting too that if you were at the wellness workshop in Erie, if you were one of those lucky people who got a meal ticket,
yes.
the beef stew that was served there
Comes from the cookbook.
yeah, it came from that cookbook. So that's a good one to have on your shelf for sure.
And then the third book in this category, which I think the cook's book kind of builds off of, is called Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat by Samin Nosrat. She had a Netflix special. If you haven't watched that, I also highly recommend that. But this book is from a professional chef, and she teaches you, there's 4 things that all foods need in order to taste good. And those are salt, fat, acid, and heat.
Hey, no spoilers.
And so she takes you on this journey. She has adorable illustrations and lots of excellent recipes as well. And I like that it's no nonsense. It's not fussy. It's not a lot of have to go buy all these special ingredients to make this really, really fancy dish that's probably gonna flop. She's like, this is the simplest way to make the best food, and it's real ingredients. My favorite recipe from this book that I cook on repeat is the buttermilk chicken. You will never have a better chicken in your life than this buttermilk chicken.
You will never get a different chicken at Kayla's house either. This
No.
is a very famous recipe in our friend group. I think all of us have made it and we
Yep.
all just adore it.
It requires some time. You have to think ahead and make sure you plan enough time to make it, but you will not regret it. I'm at the point now where I make 2 at a time, so that way I can save some of the meat for other recipes, and also so that way there's enough chicken skin to share with my niece.
I'm salivating. Okay, our next category is traditional foods. If you want to break into the traditional food scene and you don't really know where to start, you need to, be soaking and souring and eating organ meat and stuff. The exhaustive
Bible.
it is the traditional food Bible is Nourishing Traditions by Sally Fallon. It has everything. It has everything you need in it. It's huge. It could be a
delight.
doorstop. Sometimes I read it for fun.
I know. I just
really
sit down
like
and
it.
flip through it and read from it.
Yeah,
because
it's good.
chock full of
Yes.
information.
But it is huge. And if you want to get into stuff like that, but it feels overwhelming, as it often can, I do recommend the Nourishing Traditions Kids Cookbook. It's just a much, much, much more condensed, more kid-friendly recipes version of that. It's not exhaustive. It's not all encompassing or anything like that. But it's just I need to get some easy, just get my feet wet recipes. That's a super fun one. And then also I have a book called Real Food Fermentation by Alex Levin. I've had it forever. Don't know where I got it from. It's probably a gift from Probably my mother-in-law, if I were to guess.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's got all kinds of things from sauerkraut to water kefir or whatever. But what I make out of it the most is their corned beef recipe.
Oh.
Make your own corned beef. It's delicious. It's like a St. Patrick's Day staple at our house. I'm sorry, I just blew through all these, and I think I'm supposed to talk about the next ones too. Kayla's going to sit on her hands for a minute.
Yeah, that's fine.
Baking. I've been baking for a really long time. I love to bake. And there was a season where I didn't bake so much because we were like grain free or whatever. And I'm glad we're not doing labels anymore because I really missed baking. But if you want to start cleaning up your diet, if you want to start, eating more real food, baking at home is like the best thing to do. These next two cookbooks are 100 Morning Treats and 100 Cookies, both by Sarah Kiefer. And they're not soured, they're not sourdough, they're not fermented, but they're just good basic recipes, and they are phenomenal. I have never had a bad recipe out of there. I love that she does have some imperial measurements, but I love that she has them all in grams, so you can measure everything and make them to the T how they're supposed to be. I can't say enough good things about these cookbooks. I had, I think it was the cookie one. I had gotten it out of our library like 6 times before I was like, I have to just buy this book. Like, I basically own it at this point. In 100 Morning Treats, I have made her brown butter banana bread at least a dozen times this year. Like, I've made it so many times, and I always like triple it. Like, I have written in pencil like how to triple it, and then I like it freezes and thaws phenomenally. I've gotten so many compliments on it. Highly recommend. And then just super basic, her chocolate chip cookies recipe is the best chocolate chip chocolate chip cookie recipe you will ever have. It's better.
Know.
It's better than your grandma's. Sorry, it is.
Good to know.
Yeah. And then we also did like an online download category because we know a lot of creators who, they don't have the overhead to be able to print or get deals, book deals or whatever. So being able to download cookbooks online and pay a creator directly and then print them yourself is like, I probably have 6 of them on my shelf at least. I've got a lot of them.
Yeah.
But some of my favorites there's a free sourdough guide from Homegrown Education, and that one is free. So like you can just download and go. And it's how I first got into sourdough. It's how it made it like in a way that I understood. And she goes like from making your own starter, which I've done via her recipe and recommendations to like making things with it. Highly recommend that. And then also Fallon's books are awesome. Fallon Danae from Instagram, she's so cool, and she has super awesome recipe books.
Yes.
And those are like allergy friendly, so they can be great if you need to either make for your own family or like you have a lot of friends that are like have allergies to be able to like take things places.
Yeah. So I also use the sourdough guide from Homegrown Education, and I should have mentioned this in the baking category, but the roasted garlic bread.
Oh yeah.
That I talked about. I think I'm going to talk about in next week's episode. Spoiler alert.
Premonitions.
But I got the basic recipe for that from a book called Artisan Sourdough.
Yeah, by Emily
Rafa.
Yeah.
That was good crowdsourcing. Right?
Look at us.
So I've been using that one for some of my sourdough recipes as well, like some baking. So I also use free sourdough guide from Homegrown Education. I also use some of Fallon's recipes from both her meal plans, and Batch is the one I have. I think she has a couple others now at this point. But those are the 2 that I've used and like. And then Innate Fertility, who I talked about her course, Conscious Conception, at the top of this episode. She has a recipe book as well that I really enjoy. One of my favorite recipes from that is the basil lime shrimp.
Those are good. I like that.
It is very good. So, and I mean, like, there's other recipes in there that I've used and liked, but that's like the one I keep coming back to. And then a couple other like downloadable cookbooks from Annika Nicole. I think her website is builtfrombones.com. She has a couple. I have Metabolic and Harvest, and I'm going to talk about marshmallows in next week's episode. I got the marshmallow recipe from Harvest.
That's good to know, because I've actually been looking for a natural sweetener marshmallow recipe.
I still used cane sugar, but it's not corn syrup, I guess. I think you could probably use maple syrup. I haven't tried it, though.
I mean, I'm still making Alton Brown's corn syrup ones,
Yeah.
which are fine. It's all right.
These ones use gelatin and cane syrup, vanilla extract. So really, really good. I've used some of her other recipes in those books as well, but that's just one that I've recently used and enjoyed.
Love it. And then I have a wild card pick. Do you have a wild card pick, or is it just me?
I might think of one by the time you finish talking.
Okay.
We'll see.
So my wild card pick that doesn't really fit into any categories is I have this book called Let's Make Ramen by Hugh Amano and Sarah Beacon. And it is a comic book style cookbook of like legit ramen recipes. And I have yet to make ramen from it, in all seriousness, but I have used the Ajisuki Tamago recipe, which is like, you know, those like seasoned jammy eggs that you get in like a bowl of ramen at a restaurant. Mm. That's that recipe. It tastes identical and they're so good. I've made it 100 times, and I keep like a jar of them in my fridge almost all the time. We have them for snacks. We eat them just to add to like something that's got like an Asian flair to it. We'll add those for extra protein and vitamins and minerals, and they are so good. I've made them so many times, but I'm really excited to hopefully get around to actually making like legit ramen and like ramen noodles soon. Highly recommend that book.
I didn't think of one.
Okay, that's all right. I'll just be the wild card today. This is a great time to talk about our Patreon. We have a free Patreon. We're super excited about it, and we want to talk about cookbooks. Let's start a chat about cookbooks. Yes. We want to hear, we're cookbook nerds. We have shelves that are overflowing with them because we love them. We think they're beautiful. We read them for fun, like the nerds we are. I flip through them just to enjoy myself. It's like a coffee table book to me. But leave us your cookbook recommendations so we can check them out. And then maybe the next one we do, we have some of your recommendations in there because we love a good cookbook.
Yeah. And actually, I did think of a wild card pick.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. We'll circle back.
It's called Pizza Night. I bought this for my sister-in-law, and I can't remember the author. I'll have to put it in the Patreon. But I flipped through it because I'm a monster. But I was blown away by it. I went out on a limb when I bought it because I was like, I don't know if this is going to be any good, but I'm going to try it. It is phenomenal, and I think I'm going to buy one for myself and maybe for all of my friends. Because
yes, please.
It's so good.
I'm so excited.
I'm mad that I'm giving it away.
She's going to love it. It's going to be awesome. All right, Kayla, what's good this week?
What's good this week are the Finley Donovan books by L. Cosimano. I found the first one at Salvation Army for $1.
Love that.
And fun fact, when I flipped through it, when I was like reading it, I was like, oh, there's a piece of paper in here. It was a $2 bill, so I actually made money.
You can't afford not to buy that.
I actually made money on this book.
That's funny.
The first book is called Finley Donovan is Killing It. It is hilarious. Corny as heck. Do not come at me if you're looking for a serious book. But it's hilarious. This author, she's like single mom, author, meets her agent at a Panera Bread and is talking to her agent about this book that she's supposed to be writing. And it's supposed to be like, she writes like romantic murder mysteries. And so she's talking to her agent about this plot. A woman on the next table overhears her and thinks that she's a hit woman and slips her a note and is like, take care of my husband.
That's funny.
And hijinks ensue. It's so cute, a lot of fun, a little bit of spice, nothing weird, like nothing extreme. In fact, when I looked at her website, it was like one of the FAQs was, why isn't there more spice in your books? And I was like, no, I'm comfortable with the level of spice in these books. Thank you very much. So loved that first book. I have the second one out from the library right now, and I am ripping through it because they're fun. They're cute and cozy and fun.
Well, once I'm done with my heavy read that I'm doing right now, I'm going to listen to that one because I need something a little fun and
it is so fun.
Lighthearted.
So, Emily, what about you? What's good this week?
Christmas break.
Yes.
We made it. Made it, y'all. My kids had their last day of school 2 days ago because they went to the Nutcracker yesterday. So 2 days ago. And my middle would definitely like argue with me. Well, he'd argue about anything, but that's beside the point. But I think I was more excited than they were, low-key. I mean, I kept it together because I'm the adult and the teacher. But guys, I'm ready for a break. I need a brain break. And you guys deserve to hear something besides like long history lessons at our nerding out session. Please let me know if you enjoy those or if you're like, please stop. This is torture. Or like, do you skip them? It's fine. I can handle it. Not really. I'll cry. But I'm just so ready for a break. I want to, my husband's off work for a week and a half and I'm ready to just like snuggle and watch like Indiana Jones and just like, let's just chill and drink hot chocolate and do an adventure or two. Like, yeah, it's time. And we have like this huge announcement. If you noticed an increase in our quality, it's because we are making use of our sister and brother-in-law's recording studio in their basement and their fancy equipment. And this awesome.
We sound so good.
I hope so. We haven't listened yet, but I assume we sound amazing.
We sound really great in our heads.
We sound great in my ears. So I'm sorry you won't be like serenaded by my 30-year-old fridge or my sump pump. Either one of them, either sump pump or the heat kicking on and off.
Or the dog, which normally she was fine, but once in a while.
Remember that time she sneezed? Did that make it into an episode?
I don't think I cut it out. I think I left it because I was like, I don't know how to cut this out without cutting out a lot of other things. And I thought it was cute. Yeah.
Cute. But we're just like really thankful for them. And we're really thankful for Caleb's expertise in this area. He's actually produced several podcasts. And we were just having a conversation that we need to like low-key gaslight him into starting his own production company, like podcast production. We're gonna tag and all his things, all of his projects. He already co-owns a film production company. They do commercials and they're fantastic. They have done a few podcasts and they're all super fun and really well done. So huge shout out to him and his setup here to making us sound like real professionals.
Yes, we are loving it.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Good Enough Wellness Podcast.
To learn more about my one-on-one packages, join my mailing list and follow me on Instagram at Kayla King Wellness.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Good Enough Wellness Podcast feed wherever you listen to podcasts. You don't want to miss an episode.
Follow us on Instagram at Good Enough Wellness Podcast to learn about upcoming episodes and join our free Patreon to interact with the Good Enough community.
The Good Enough Wellness Podcast, because good enough can be good enough.
Well, that's good enough for me.
Me too.